few years ago, there was a famous social experiment involving the violinist Joshua Bell. I found it a fascinating idea. One morning, during rush hour, he stood in a busy underground station and he played some of the most beautiful music ever written. He played for 45 minutes on his $3.5 million Stradivarius, and hundreds of people, if not thousands, hurried past. A few coins were dropped in his basket, and I think he got something like $35 in total. Almost no one stopped. It wasn't that the music wasn't extraordinary, it was that it was in a place that nobody expected it. The story stays with us because it tells us an uncomfortable truth. We often miss wonder when it happens unexpectedly, in the middle of ordinary life. And Christmas, in many ways, tells us a similar story. The story is filled with things happening where they wouldn't be, where we wouldn't expect them. A baby in the place where animals should be. Shepherds startled in the field by angels singing. And somehow God delights in turning the ordinary upside down, placing the extraordinary in the most unlikely of places. This morning we're going to explore 3 truths of that first Christmas, all rooted in the wonder of God showing up where we wouldn't expect him. First, let's think about light that breaks through in unlikely places. Isaiah tells us, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light." And Luke shows us where this light first appears. It's not in palaces or temples, but in fields at night, with shepherds watching over their flocks. We're also familiar with this story now, that the quirky choice of location and main characters might not surprise us anymore. But imagine for a moment you're running PR for the momentous event of Jesus' birth. Where would you suggest the angels first announce this momentous occasion? You'd probably think either somewhere with large crowds to maximise the reach, or possibly find the most powerful influencer you can, someone with status. You'd be unlikely to pick a small group of people with very limited resources, limited influence, who, as far as we know, haven't ever shown a particular sign in finding the Messiah. The first light of salvation doesn't shine in centres of power or influence. It shines in messy, ordinary, everyday lives. God's light doesn't wait for us to tidy things up first. It breaks through exactly where we are. For those of us who feel that things are a bit messy, maybe in our homes or in our lives or our hearts, that is deeply reassuring. With the birth of Jesus, God's light has come. Maybe you've arrived this morning carrying a quiet heaviness, or perhaps some anxious thoughts, the weight of grief, or simply the sense that you're going through the same old motions. The shepherds weren't expecting anything other than the same old that night. The message of Christmas is not try harder and see better. It's simply look up. The light has already come. Darkness doesn't get the last word. Not in Bethlehem's fields, and not in your life or mine. The light draws the shepherd's attention, but the message that meets them is not one of fear or judgment. It's joy, which takes us to our second point this morning. Joy comes in unexpected packages. The angels announce good news to shepherds of all people, the lowliest, most overlooked workers of the day. The good news is not in the form of political liberation, it's not in the form of promises of health, wealth, or even happiness. It's a baby, tiny baby. God himself choosing smallness. Joy, it turns out, does not always arrive with polish and ease. Sometimes joy looks like a conversation you didn't think you wanted to have, or a phone call that you weren't in the mood for, a small act of kindness that catches you off guard. Sometimes it comes wrapped not in glitter and excitement, but in inconvenience and interruption. The challenge for all of us today, and I definitely include myself in this, is to confidently and enthusiastically and faithfully accept the joy that God brings, even when it doesn't look the way we expected. God loves to bring wonder into the ordinary and joy into the most unlikely corners of our lives. For the shepherds, joy came to them seemingly out of nowhere. They received it and accepted it, and then took steps to follow where God's joy was leading them. They hear the news and say, let's go and see. And joy often meets those who are willing to take a step towards it. But, and this matters, it's not only about our ability to notice. God does not withdraw his good news because we're distracted or weary. The angels still sing, the child is still born. Grace is given before it's recognised. Joy got the shepherds moving away from their day-to-day duties and towards the child in the manger. Similarly, joy moves us and changes us. God moves us to something deeper, more enduring, peace. Our third point is thinking of peace that transforms the humble places. Isaiah speaks of the Prince of Peace, and the angels echo that promise when they declare, peace on earth to those on whom his favour rests. But notice where this peace begins. Also not in centres of power or religious importance, but in humble spaces, out in shepherds' fields, in a borrowed stable, in the quiet corners of everyday life, places where day-to-day life can be hard and uncomfortable. And that is still how God's peace tends to work. It doesn't always begin by changing our circumstances. More often it begins by changing us, by settling the noise within us, softening our attitudes where they've grown hard, gently healing what's been bruised by time or disappointment. Sometimes the peace of Christ looks like the strength to forgive when it would be easier to withdraw. Sometimes it's the courage to keep loving in a relationship that feels fragile. Sometimes it's the quiet assurance that God has not forgotten you. And even when we miss it, when it feels like peace plays too softly in the background of our lives, God is still present, still at work, still near. So today, remember that Jesus brings us light and joy and peace. Light breaks through in unlikely places, even dark corners we would think nobody would want to go. Joy comes in unexpected packages. Let's not miss it when it looks different from what we imagined. And peace transforms the humblest of spaces, working from the inside out. The stable may be humble, the baby tiny, the world still messy, but God delights in showing up where we least expect him. And when he does, everything changes. So if you feel overlooked, unfinished, or unsure this Christmas Day, remember this. The God who chose to announce his arrival to humble shepherds in the field has chosen you. His light is for you. Joy is already nearer than you think. Peace is already being offered. This is where hope begins. I wish you all a very happy Christmas.